Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mindset, Money, Success. And I'm your host, Loraine Marshall. Now, today, what I'm going to do is talk about how a former partner can move the goalposts on negotiations and mediation over and over again. Before we jump into that, I want to just tell you about a free, safe support group that I've opened up on Facebook. It's for women over 40 to move from trauma to transformation, and the concept is master your mindset, multiply your money, and maximize your success. So if you're interested in joining me in a free, zero commitment support group where we can share our stories, motivate each other, and provide helpful resources, then I'll leave the link underneath this video and in the show notes. Okay, so let's get into today's episode, and it's moving the goalposts again. I'd attempted about 6 different negotiations and mediations from when he left 2020 to May of 2021. I'd actually paid for 2 different lawyers, one in England and one in Spain. Both of those failed. I'd tried to negotiate while he was still here, and he more or less told me, "You cannot negotiate with me." Now, that was the reason why, when I went to seek legal advice and I had a 26-minute recorded meeting, which my former partner had agreed to, and the lawyer listened to what was on that recording and then told me I should file a gender violence complaint. And I didn't really want to file a gender violence complaint. And I'd asked him would he negotiate with the lawyer who was representing my former partner, which had been my lawyer as well while we were together. And he said, "Did you not hear what he just said? You cannot negotiate with him." So basically, then I was left to think about the advice I'd been given. Did I want to file this gender violence complaint? And it wasn't really until his lawyer had triggered me with something he'd said when I'd written to say, "Look, I prefer negotiation, I would prefer cooperation. I've been offered a settlement, but nothing's been paid. I agree to certain conditions." But, his lawyer then came back to me and wrote his email saying, "Be careful what about going to do this denounce, because you can be prosecuted if you provide a false complaint to the police." And then he said he knew a lot of colleagues that would give you that option with no real facts. And I'm thinking, what? I'm like, colleagues that would tell a woman to file a complaint when they didn't have the facts? I don't know. And then I was told I didn't have any rights in this country, in Spain. I had no rights. And that triggered me. And so I did file a complaint, and it took until January to have the second hearing. And in January, that's when I had started another, I think it's the 6th attempt to negotiate with a mediation company. And that failed by May because the mediation company had been lying to me and had manipulated me in a negotiation after I had paid them the fee. So, it hadn't gone very well. So by June, the former partner had reached out via email to say, "Can we negotiate without the mediator?" And I read the email and thought, is there any point? Because how many times have I tried, and how many times has everything went to pieces because obviously I didn't have any say. He made unilateral decisions and I had to obey. So that was the position I was in. And so I then found out, I discovered, because he'd written an email to this mediation company and I'd found that email. He had then said he was instructing a lawyer in Barcelona that he was going ahead to have me evicted. So in one point, he's saying he's going to have me evicted, but then in June, he's sending me an email, can we negotiate things? And it's been like that all of the way through. On one hand, he says one thing, and on the other, there's a different thing. And it's just confusing, to be honest. So in June, I mean, the actual amounts and the dates of leaving and things have been up, down, all the time. So the original settlement offer was done in August, right? It was half of the property, 115,000, based on the valuation that the estate agents had given us, and the house was going to go for sale. And then within 4 days, he changed his mind. He was shouting at me that I had to do as he said and that he could throw me out on the streets. And to be honest, I was like shocked because I didn't expect him to turn against me the way he did. And his letter didn't really help because it was an offer of this money, but the house had to be sold first. Bearing in mind, I didn't have any income, I didn't have any employment. It was COVID 2020, and people had lots and lots of people weren't working. They couldn't earn any money, you know. So how did he expect that I was just going to, you know, have an income from something? He was telling me that I would be secure, the house would be sold, I could pay off a mortgage in the UK, I would have that money, the rent income coming in, and a house that could be bought and paid for, or I could rent something. So I was under the impression that he wanted to end things in a civilized manner. But it didn't happen like that. It wasn't civilized. He was threatening me now, and that I was going to have my suitcases thrown out the door. And we'd done this this meeting where it was recorded because I was fearful that he would be intimidating. I was fearful that he would be abusive because he had been in the past. And so that's why I asked if he was okay to record the meeting. But the other reason to record our meeting would have been so that if we came to some agreement, then we could have transcribed the agreement and then taken it to a notary to be officially signed that this is what we agree. But that didn't happen because 1 minute he was saying, this is what I want, this is what I need, and then going through all the terms and conditions. And I didn't even have a voice in that meeting because I had wrote my financial proposal to him a few days before the meeting. And I'd opened the meeting by saying, let me just open the iPad till I find the email that I've sent and we can discuss it. And he went, before you do that, I don't think you understand. You don't understand. And so immediately shut down the conversation and then was telling me how my ideas were so terribly, terribly, terribly bad and it wasn't going to happen. And so I was then put back into a space of like, oh, now I can't speak. And this had happened over and over again through the relationship. Only this was worse now. So that had been the situation. When I appointed the mediator in the January, the first offer that he gave was €13,000. So it had dropped considerably. I mean, it had been zero before that because he was there, threatened me that obviously I wouldn't get anything. He was just going to throw my suitcases out the door. And then he was through his lawyer, through an email he copied his solicitor into, was saying that he was going to go to court and I would leave with nothing because he had to go through an eviction route, right? So the first offer was 13,000, and then that got negotiated, and the mediator came back to me, and then it was 40,000, and I was like, right, okay, we can accept 40,000, and it was agreed this was the amount, and there was going to be a forward payment of 3,000. Now that mediation company that are no longer in operation because manipulated me and lied, and there wasn't any 3,000. I was tricked into, an agreement where I kept my side of the bargain, where he got all his personal items back, and his vintage sports car was removed from the property so he could put that in storage, and I didn't get any side of the bargain, which I felt was not right. So that was another failed negotiation. So by June, he's now writing about wanting to try and settle things. And the amount had now gone from the 40,000 that had been agreed in April, May. Now it had gone to 25,000. So pulled it back, 25,000. And he was saying I should leave by a date in July, had to be out of the house by this date in July. And I didn't have any employment. I didn't have any business that was earning any money. I didn't have a lot of savings left at that point. I was like, well, it wouldn't happen. How can I find a rental contract? You can't just go up to someone and say, oh, by the way, I want to rent your house, but I haven't got a job. It's impossible. So he's moving the goalposts all over the place. So I respond, and then the amount goes up to 35,000. And then he has written an email that I find in one of our inboxes that we had a joint email account. So I find an email that he's written to this mediation company after I had sacked them in May. So he's written this email to say that he's got this lawyer, this specialist lawyer that knows all about this process of precarious eviction, which then just threw me back into a space of uncertainty and fear. And it's not a good space actually to be in. So I was then in a position for ringing the National Gender Violence Helpline here in Spain to get advice of what to do. And I got initial advice. And it was not to file any more complaints against him because I'd make him angry. But to be quite honest, he was already angry. Before I'd filed any gender violence, he was already angry. So then I was given advice that I should negotiate, right? But the free lawyers I was speaking to at the gender violence charity weren't about to help me negotiate. And I still didn't have any funds to actually find a lawyer who would represent me and speak with his lawyer. So that was, I was stuck. And besides, I'd already negotiated like 6 times. So I find out he's going to return to Spain. And so basically, he's got someone who wants to view, asking if I'm okay. Will these people be able to view? And I agree. And before the people view, we set up a meet in at a bar in another village, and we sit down. I've got a notepad and pen and everything. We sit down to try and negotiate something, and I tried to start the negotiations at 60,000, and he wouldn't do anything with 60,000. So then it gets dropped to 40,000, and basically I'm writing out this the agreements, but he keeps changing it all the time. So I get halfway down the page of like trying to write the different points, and because he's changed things, and I didn't want to start scribbling it out, I just ripped the page out of the book and screwed it into a ball because I was starting to get really annoyed by then. So we start again. and we start again and we put in the points down of the different things that we want to agree on. Now, since I'd actually done some legal research from the time I've been here, I understood that from one of the laws in the gender balance is Article 44, paragraph 5 of the Organic Law from 2004. It expressly prohibits mediation in cases of intimate partner violence. And basically, there wasn't physical violence, it was emotional violence, it was emotional and psychological abuse, and how he was controlling everything. And so I was more, I didn't really have a voice. I didn't have legal representation. There was no one on my side to help me to get any settlement from him. So it was really, really difficult to do anything. So we're sitting there trying to sort this out, and he offers, I think it's like 10,000 to start with, and he'd do that within 2 weeks, and then 30,000 would be paid on sale agreed. And so that was more or less agreed, but there was other things that I could keep, the laptop, the microphones, like I'd said, tools of the trade, and he agreed that. And there was that he would stop the eviction so that I wouldn't be under pressure, I wouldn't be under stress, and he agreed that. He also agreed that I could have or sell any of the furniture in the house, and he agreed that. And so we come to the end of this agreement, we both sign it and initial all of the pages. So that was how I ended up getting this signed agreement in July 2021. Now, when I went to meet him, I was stood at the bar, and I didn't even recognize when he was stood beside me. He turned to me and said to us, "I've got someone I want to introduce you to." And I was like, looked over his shoulder, I saw his new wife, and I thought, oh, and I didn't really want to be introduced to his new wife. And I said, no, thank you. And I just walked away and sat down. I did hear his wife sort of gasp and say, oh, but I wasn't wanting to be introduced after everything that he had done, everything he had said in that meeting we'd had in 2020. There was no way I was going to be introduced to his wife after everything I'd experienced. And besides, I felt that it was like a red flag from what I've now understood as part of the cycle of abuse is introducing you to the new supply is a form of triangulation. It's a red flag. So there I was, where he was wanting to introduce me to his new wife, his new supply, and introduce his ex-girlfriend, the old supply, to the new supply. And I thought, no, this is not happening. So we got this agreement, and the people have viewed the house, and I explained to them about what had happened. But they were interested in the property and wanted to pay a deposit. So he asked me actually, would I type up the agreement? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll type the agreement up. so that it could go to the notary to be properly signed, because we'd only signed a handwritten agreement. I typed up the agreement, I sent it to him. They were going to meet the buyers at the notary on the next day. Now, they did ask for a second viewing, so he wanted to come around for that second viewing. I wasn't really happy about that, but I agreed anyway. So the couple and him ended up at the house, and I had a friend with me as moral support. And so when he got here, the people went off to have a look around the property, and I wanted to show him the things that I'd done to maintain the house, because there'd been some water damage and I'd had the walls in the garage replastered. Took him into the games room to show that I'd had to sell the slate bed snooker table, which I'd purchased for his 65th birthday. So, I had to sell that because obviously I was running low on funds, and I had to find funds to buy food, and I hadn't been able to earn any income. So that was basically because of all the trauma. So after they looked around, I was sat with my friend, and he was stood in front of me. Now, at that time, I had this thought of something that had happened previously, and he'd actually accused me of extortion or blackmail from November 2020, and that popped into my head while he was stood there, and I tried to bring that up to say, look, I had not attempted to blackmail him, right? Because it was the solicitor I had engaged who were attempting to negotiate on my behalf with his lawyer. And in that period before Christmas, I had been trying to communicate with him through text messages and voice messages. And he had told me that one of his friends had recently died. And it started off as an ordinary conversation, but then all of a sudden it sort of flipped into some horrible accusations, which I didn't really like. And so here I was trying to say this, and then he said, stop picking off the scab, because I'd brought something up from the past. And this basically meaning not to go over these old wounds. And then I said something else, and then he snapped, and he said, don't take the piss out of me. And of course, I wasn't taking the piss out of him. And he started to walk away. And that phrase was a phrase that he'd used in the devaluation and the intimidation and the threatening meeting that I've got recorded, right? And so it triggered me. And from that trauma, I stood up, and then I was shouting loudly, don't take the piss out of me, Loraine, don't take the piss out of me, as he was walking away to get into the car of the people who had just viewed. And that was how that was the reaction that I had at that point. So we've got this agreement, it's 40,000 and it's on sale agreed. I can have any of the furniture, sell any of the furniture. I've got my tools of my trade is all right. He was going to stop the eviction process, and everything was signed up. But I sent him the typed agreement, and then the day before they were supposed to meet, he moved the goalposts again, because he then sent the typed up agreement back, and it was changed. And in the email, he says, I've made some amendments to the draft agreement. And then he sort of took out a reference to gratitude, because at the end of that meeting, he asked me what I would do for him. And I was taken aback. I was like, what? What? I have to do something for him. So I just added on the bottom of this handwritten agreement, I'm gratefully appreciative of everything he's doing for me, paying the utilities at the property, etc. He is appreciative for everything I have done to maintain his property in good order. So he took that part of the agreement out of the typed up agreement and basically then changed part of it and added something that I really didn't agree to, because what he did was add 4.1, which was that he agreed to pay the sum of 30,000 on completion of sale and vacant possession. Now, this is not what was agreed in the original handwritten agreement, because it was 30,000 to be paid on sale agreed and completion, but not vacant possession, because how I couldn't leave the property without having the money first, because this is what I was told. The gender violence lawyers told me, money first, then leave, right? And so I was then thrown backwards again, back into uncertainty, back into fear, and he's changed the terms. And, you know, I was pacing the floor. I was pacing the floor, and I tried to contact him. I tried to get in touch and say, this is not acceptable. You've changed the agreement without consulting me first. And it wasn't what I wanted, basically. And he'd already agreed. He'd already signed the agreement, and he'd gone back on his word again. So he was meeting these people the next day. I couldn't do anything about it. And I was just basically in a place of trauma again. So he then sends this message, the buyers have dropped out. Well, I'm not surprised, really, because I think they must have been told that they could end up being responsible to evict me if I didn't leave at the point of the sale, and they were going to pay a deposit, and it wasn't clear that the house had vacant possession if I was still living there. And so because of the situation of conflict, which wasn't on my part, it was mostly him, they dropped out. And so I then sent a message to say, like, we'll meet again, we can meet again, because it should be money first. And then he refused to meet. He was telling me it was too stressful to meet again. So the next part of the negotiations played out like this. I sent an email to him on the 26th of July, and it says, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. Just set up another meeting. I need to see you. Get this settled. He replies, I am tired too. I want to help you, but meeting face to face isn't helpful. It's distressing for both of us. And I suggest email is the best way to progress for now. It allows us both thinking time. It is good that you found somewhere else to go. Please give me a firm date when a house will be vacated. I also want to know what financial help you expect from me. Well, that confused me, because obviously we'd already signed an agreement for 40,000, and now he was going right back to the beginning to say, what help did I need? Oh, so I'm sending another email, and it's like, how ridiculous are you? I can't go out unless I've got the money first. 20 minutes in the local bar. That's all. I promise. Stick to the cards on the table. End of story. And he sends another reply back. And he says, if you can't answer 2 straightforward questions by email, then I am not wasting any more of my time. So he wouldn't meet again, and he wouldn't discuss things. And he'd just twisted everything because we had an agreement. Even when I said I had somewhere to go, if he paid the money, he could have his house back, vacant possession. He could have went back to the people who had just dropped out, and that would have been it. But no. So my final response was, what are you frightened of? A 5'2" blonde from Sunderland? I can't answer the questions about when I can vacate. That depends on your willingness to pay a financial settlement. So that was how he'd basically moved the goalposts again. And so that was another attempt at ending things and allowing me a secure, peaceful future where I had this signed agreement for 40,000, the offer of a place to go, and it could have been ended. But obviously it wasn't about the house. It wasn't about the house. He was more interested in causing me maximum damage, maximum hurt, emotional and psychological devastation, and financial devastation. And this is how these people do this. This is how they keep moving the goalposts, changing things, adding things in, taking things out, making false allegations to the police, false allegations to his lawyer, and basically taking litigation after litigation. And that has been how I have survived over these last few years, which haven't been good at all. So I am writing the sequel to my first published book, which I wrote under the pen name of Loraine. And that first book was What Type of Man? And the second book is launching in December, and it's called Deceptions, Illusions, Embroidered with Truth. And it is to document the process from May of 2021 through to where I am now. And it's not over yet. I've still got litigations in the court, and the civil court have decided that they have resumed the eviction despite having a criminal case against me in the criminal courts for defamation and damages, which obviously haven't been heard yet. And apparently now I stand to be evicted 5 days before Christmas. And I just still don't know what I'm going to do. So this is how these people can treat you at the end of a relationship. There's lack of empathy, lack of remorse, and they basically don't care. You are like a rag doll to them. You're like a possession, a plaything. You're not a person to them. And I'm still fighting. I'm still here. And this has been my podcast. Now, my first book is going to be relaunched because some things have changed. So it's been updated for the second version. And my book, under the pen name of Loraine, is launching in December. And it's Deceptions and Illusions Embroidered with Truth. And it's available in Amazon and digital stores on pre-order. So if you want to order a copy before the launch, then I'll leave a link below so you can go and order that copy, and that would help me out. So thank you for listening to this episode of Mindset, Money, Success. And if you are a woman who is going through a whole load of trauma from how your relationship ended, whether that is been divorce, death of a partner, or discard, as in an abrupt termination, then don't forget, you could join me in my free group, which is a safe space. You've got to actually sign up to get in. You can't just join. You've got to give your email so I know that who I'm inviting in. Okay. So master your mindset, multiply your money, maximize your success from trauma to transformation. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.